We all know KSI will go against Jake Paul at some point, but he's not interested in doing it so quickly. For now, we'll have to make do with Dillion Danis, whose face KSI wants to break. Get your popcorn ready, because KSI is all primed up to face him on January 14th at Wembley Arena in London. But would Dillion even go through with it, considering he was a no-show at the press conference? Let's find out. First off, what happened at the press conference? At the press conference held on Thursday to promote the fight, KSI spoke of going through a difficult time, how boxing helped him get over it, and how his future is going against Jake Paul and putting him in his place. From what we know, KSI is a progress-driven kind of guy because it gives him a purpose. Based on what we know, KSI admits that he lost his direction and sense of purpose somewhere along the way, making him feel empty, but now he feels happy and positive about his life. For him, it will be very satisfying to break Dillion Danis' face on January 14th, and then to break the next person, and the next, or whoever it is, and then finally get to Jake Paul like the big boss at the end of a video game and ruin all he has created. That sounds pretty exciting, doesn't it? Next up, where does Jake Paul stand in his boxing career? Paul just defeated former UFC middleweight champion Anderson Silva by a majority decision earlier this year, while KSI previously defeated Logan Paul, a current WWE wrestler who's also Jake Paul's elder brother. The campaign to match up KSI and Paul is expected to gain momentum as long as both fighters remain in the public eye, but KSI thinks he'll hang up his gloves when the time finally comes. If he wanted to, he could challenge Jake in the middle of next year. Not to mention, KSI was even given the option of fighting him, but he declined, at least for the time being. He's slowly getting back into his groove and is obsessed with just being able to improve. To be honest, he has already reached a level where he can just keep moving forward, far further than anyone had predicted. If you think about it, he has never truly been able to complete a 5K in under 20 minutes, but now it's like nothing to him. That's the kind of beast Mr. Knowledge has become. Let's talk more about the press conference. On January 14th, the main event of the MF and DAZN X Series 4 will take place at London's iconic Wembley Arena and feature KSI taking on Dillion Danis. The Nightmare discussed how therapy has helped him realize his mission in life during the press conference held to publicize the event. Following that, he discussed his boxing objectives, starting with his matchup with Danis. KSI wants to confront the man who threw coffee at him during an MF DAZN match in the United States. For some time now, Dillion Danis has been insulting JJ and the Paul brothers. He now has the chance to prove his trash talk is legit by taking on one of the top fighters in the YouTube boxing scene. Since there's a lot of hostility between the two, the winner of the match could decide to challenge Jake Paul next. Not sure about you, but we're extremely excited about this one. Not to mention, fighting Jake is JJ's end goal. Logan Paul, the problem child's older brother, was JJ's opponent in his first ever boxing match in 2019. JJ didn't fight again until August 2022, when he defeated both of his opponents in a single night. JJ recently disclosed that his ultimate goal in getting back into the ring was to face Jake Paul. The YouTuber declared during the press conference for his fight with Danis that Jake Paul has always been his main driving force. It's why he returned to boxing, to prove to everyone that Jake Paul isn't all that. For now, we don't know whether they'd fight at Wembley Stadium or any other stadium in the United Kingdom, because their teams are still keeping all of their options open. There's a chance of it happening somewhere in the United States as well. All we know is that it'll definitely happen at some point, because KSI has said it'll eventually happen multiple times already. When they both finally face off, it's probably going to be JJ's last fight in the boxing scene, so it only makes sense that he works toward it, rather than just a one-and-done situation. We can see JJ's point of view, since if the drama ended that way, it would be boring. Jake Paul, in the meantime, shared a clip on Twitter and said that he was flattered to be KSI's ultimate boxing goal. KSI continued by saying that he thinks Jake Paul would defeat Tommy Fury if the two ever squared off, but nobody knows if that fight will ever happen at this point. Next up, KSI blasts Dillion Danis for no-show at the press conference. A press conference to promote the forthcoming boxing battle between KSI and Dillion Danis was held on Thursday. Unfortunately, just one warrior appeared, and the other one didn't. It goes without saying that KSI felt disrespected because of the no-show, but then again, this shows him that he's already in his head ahead of the fight. Although it's sad and insulting to KSI and everyone who expected him to show up, it's nothing new because Alex Wasabi also did the same thing. It's most likely KSI's presence, or just him in general, because of how threatening he can be when in the ring. Not to mention, according to his resume, he doesn't lose too often and is incredibly focused and dedicated. We believe that's definitely trickling in for Dillion. He's undefeated too, but he looks a little hesitant to take on KSI. Danis missed the conference, according to event producer Kali Sowerland, so he could focus on his training after suffering a case of influenza. Danis was supposed to join by video, according to Sowerland, but he didn't even do that throughout the press conference. Moving on, could Dillion Danis pull out of the fight? Either way, if the fight does happen, Danis will finally understand how irritated KSI has been, because he'll show him how much he hates him for insulting him. KSI hopes to make a statement when he sees him in the ring, and it's probably going to be epic if it happens, because so far, it seems like Dillion might chicken out because of how focused and determined KSI is to achieve his goals. He literally doesn't let anything stand in his way. After everything is said and done, KSI is prepared for anything, whether it be Dillion Danis, Tommy Fury, Jake Paul, or any other fighter for that matter, because KSI is a whole different animal that likes to prove people wrong, no matter how many times he's doubted. To be honest, nobody would be surprised if Danis does decide to pull out, because going against KSI is no joke. Not to mention, KSI is already terrorizing and haunting him, and it's slowly breaking Dillion Danis down. Now for who KSI could fight if Dillion Danis pulls out. Joe Fournier, a businessman turned boxer, says that if Danis cancels, he will take JJ's place in the fight next year. With a 9-0-1 record in professional boxing, all 9 of Fournier's victories came by way of knockout. In a recent interview with the Englishman, Fred Talks Fighting asked him if he would be interested in a fight with JJ. Both of their teams are actively discussing it, according to Fournier, who said he has already lined everything up. If Dillion Danis withdraws from this bout, he will definitely be the replacement. He has already informed KSI that he doesn't even need to train either because he's ready to go, waiting for the call to come in. Due to the fact that Dillion Danis skipped their scheduled press conference earlier this week, there's a very high chance that will happen. If anything, this shows his fear of dealing with KSI, plus his being inactive isn't a very good sign either. To be fair though, Danis hasn't competed in MMA since 2019, and should he make it to Fight Night, will be making his boxing debut, so it's pretty understandable for him to back out. Let's talk more about KSI's replacement fighter. Most individuals are already familiar with Fournier from his exhibition fight against David Haye, a former heavyweight and cruiserweight world champion, in September. The fight, which lasted 8 rounds and saw Haye defeat his friend by unanimous decision, earned Fournier $6 million for the bizarre fight. The boxing billionaire will battle Tony Christodoulou, a former UFC fighter, on the undercard of KSI's upcoming Misfits DAZN event on January 14th. Fournier said on Instagram that it's officially back on pay-per-view and back in London on January 14th at Wembley Arena. He also said that if Tony Christodoulou doesn't get terrified like the rest of them, he's going to smash through him and into KSI in his next fight. Not to mention, if Dillion Danis chickens out, Tony might get a lifeline, and we could see him go up against KSI. Finally, was Dillion Danis' influenza stint a lie? Danis skipped the press conference in London earlier this week, raising questions about whether he'll cancel his fight against KSI. The multiple-time world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu missed his flight out of New York due to illness and was unable to participate in the conference via Zoom link. He later told KSI that his press conference is garbage because the king does as he pleases. He then proceeded by saying he was going to dance on KSI's head on January 14th. Bold words by someone who doesn't even show up for a press conference. The co-promoter of the forthcoming Misfits event, Kali Sowerland of Wasserman Boxing, brushed down rumors that Bellator star Danis might pull out of the fight after skipping the press conference. The event wouldn't be postponed, according to the promoter, because they have a substitute on contract. Considering that KSI doesn't follow the same schedule as a typical boxer, it's only natural for them to always have a contractual backup around him. He goes on a global tour and needs to do it right after his fight, so they can't simply say, well, we'll move the fight back a few weeks. Who do you think will win between KSI and Dillion Danis? Let us know in the comments down below. That's it for today. If you liked the video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more awesome content like this.